In the land of Galarian, a region named the Stolen Lands spans the southern border of Brevoy. Over the past 1,000 years, many attempts have been made to settle the area, but to date, none have succeeded. This makes the 35,000 square miles of wilderness the largest swath of unclaimed land in the entire River Kingdoms. As tensions mount in Brevoy between the ruling House Sertova and the southern province of Rossland, one of Rossland's most prominent and influential sword lords, Lady Jamandi Aldori, plans to issue charters to several groups of adventurers, sending them south into the Stolen Lands to reopen old trade routes, defeat the dangerous monsters plaguing the area, and to remove the bandits that have made the Stolen Lands their home. By sending free agents, this sword lord, located in Restov, hopes to create new allies without sacrificing her own position of power within Brevoy or drawing ire from King Regent Noleski Sertova. Lady Jamandi's call for heroes has reached many ears who seek fortune and fame, and that is where our story begins. Lady Jamandi Aldori's Manor, outskirts of Restov Brevoy, 1st of Desnas, 4710 AR. Trotting towards a gated manor with regal oak trees and well-manicured hedges on either side of the road, Dorgon Thwackhammer felt that his opportunity had arrived. He had traveled long and far, but every drop of sweat was worth it, and the company was not too bad either. He looked over his shoulder to see if his new allies were keeping up, but he shook his head in disapproval as he approached the gates that had 2 guards to one side. The gates were already open, as the guards were leaning against one post, smoking a pipe. One guard spoke up. "Another hero approaches. This one has his own steed." Dorgon dismounted and ruffled through his pack attached to his spiritual war pig. "Is this Lady Jamandi Aldori's estate?" "My name is Dorgon Thwackhammer, and my companions and I were invited to Urkel de Heroes." "You're just in time," the guard said as he took the parchment to look it over. "We can take your steed to the stables for your stay. Are those your friends in the distance?" "Aye, they like to take their time, though. I've no need for a stable," Dorgon said, waving his hand towards the approaching companions. Down the path a little way, Kirini Skycrusher was squinting her keen eyes looking for Dorgon, while her horse slowly trotted forward beside her fellow adventurer, Callum Gleesong.
Callum, do you notice that when Dorgon knows we're about to get a hot meal, he is extra fast? Like he always takes his time doing everything, but promise him meat, mead, and a warm bed, and the old grump is like 50 years younger.
"Yes, he becomes irritable and a little smitey when he lives off the berries, replied the half-elf riding beside Kirini.
Well, yeah, but it's nice not having to cook. Besides, there isn't much game out on these plains. When we return to the Stolen Lands, I'll be able to hunt and cook juicy, delectable monsters again.
Her mind drifted off to her favorite monster meals that her parents made growing up. It had been 3 years since Kirini left the Hook-Tongue Slough, but her thoughts were disturbed when a hint of fire singed her shoulder after a loud sneeze came from behind. "Sorry, Kirini girl," yelled the red Dragonborn riding behind Callum and Kirini. "It's just my allergies." "Sorry." "Well, your name is well earned, Miss Firestarter," Callum smoothly replied, unperturbed by the surprise burst of flame.
I think I can feel him grumbling at us. Let's catch up.
Kirini, Callum, and the Dragonborn lady, Berina Firestarter, and a 4th horse covered in toadstools all picked up the pace in order to catch up to Dorgon. He was checking his armor for cleanliness as he wanted to look presentable during the feast. As a guard and a couple of stable hands took the horses away, the second guard checked the names of the list provided to him by Dorgon. "Callum Gleesong? Berina Firestarter, I presume?" He paused, looking at the red Dragonborn. "That's me," Berina said, giving a wide, toothy smile. "Right, Miss Firestarter. Where's your other companion, Ruby Morel?" Ah! As he screamed as a pile of horse bookers covered his right side. The toadstool horse shifted seamlessly into a slender elf in mossy robes carrying a toadstool-covered staff. Oops, sorry, Ruby says with an embarrassed look. Here, have a good berry to brighten your day. Ruby quickly moved through the gate, avoiding eye contact with the guard, giving him a berry from her cloak. Berina followed her and turned to the guard. And a coin for your trouble. May you find your destiny. She patted the guard on his shoulder. She easily dwarfed him in height. Dorgon turned to face in his eyes tardy companions. They always reacted differently whenever they faced his steely gaze and grumpy demeanor, but they followed his lead when necessary. And that was good enough for him. All right, team. This may be more dangerous than that time we saved the town from a black dragon cultist. We must talk to strangers and behave in a civilized fashion for one night. There may even be smoozing required. So put on your happy faces. Let's go. As Dorgon turned from his companions to face the estate of Lady Jamandi Aldori, thunder was heard in the distance. But to Dorgon this was a sign from the Forge Father himself. He was on the right path to secure a new home for his people, much like in the fables of the quest for the sky. As they all reached the entrance to the manor, they were greeted by Lady Jamandi's staff, each of them dressed impeccably for tonight's Feast of Heroes. With their packs being taken to their rooms for the night, an attendee guided the party to the great hall. The entrance and path were adorned with tapestries depicting various sword lords from Rossland before it was conquered by Coral the Conqueror. Dorgon hastily asked a question of Callum. Callum, what are the river freedoms again? I forgot. There are 6 river freedoms that all the river kingdoms abide by, Callum said as he admired the manor's decor. I know that, Dorgon bristled. What are the freedoms exactly? This is important diplomatic information that we need to know. Dorgon tried giving Callum a steely glare, knowing that the sly half-elf was being coy. Don't worry about it. I can handle any negotiations. And besides, we don't know many details yet. Just enjoy your feast and try and make friends. Callum strided past Dorgon as their guide opened a double set of doors to the great hall. They paused for a moment as they only saw 5 seats open. They were clearly the last. None of the guests in the great hall seemed to pay much attention when the grand doors opened. Servants were hustling and bustling about while several armed soldiers, likely Lady Jamandi's houseguards, watched over the great hall from their positions along the east, west, and south walls. The crackle of a fire came from behind the head table, while 2 massive crystal chandeliers provided a sense of ambiance to the space. Walls were decorated with painted murals of idyllic woodland scenes, nymphs frolicking amid waterfalls, satyrs dancing with fauns in a wooded glade, and various winged fairy creatures flitting through trees. Clearly, the theme was Fae. 9 long tables are arranged in the center, creating 3 rows, each holding their own plates, cutlery, goblets, and ready to be poured pitchers of alcohol. A 4th row of tables were empty, besides a pale elven woman sitting alone. The smell of roasted meat filled the room every time a servant moved to and from the kitchen area. It was truly an inviting scene. Berina rushed forward and grabbed a seat at the table with 5 other adventurers, sitting beside a small halfling lady with auburn hair. She was wearing clean traveling clothes and happened to be sitting on a large book to give herself a boost at the table. Hi, the peppy and excited Dragonborn said to the halfling. Have we missed anything yet? My name's Berina. You're just in time. I think they're getting ready. The food smells better and better. My name's Lindsay, the halfling replied with just as much enthusiasm as Berina. Isn't this just exciting? The start of adventure. Heroes answer to the quest's call. I will have to call this the Feast of Heroes in my book. And the potential for servants, chimed in a gnome sitting on the other side of Lindsay. Berina did not like the unsettling vibes that she got from the gnome's purple hair and velvety robes. Never mind his comment. Where is this lady, whoever? I'm getting bored, groaned the Kellid woman at the end of the table. Seemingly conjured by the groan of a barbarian, the west wing doors opened. A striking half-elf woman followed by an aristocratic middle-aged man walked to the head table. The man wore finely tailored clothing, fit for a noble, while the woman appeared dressed for battle. She wore a fine leather coat over a sparkling chainmail shirt, and at her waist hangs an Aldori dueling sword with a bright silver pommel. The murmur in the hall went quiet. Greetings, heroes. I am Ios of Selamius, Lord Mayor of Rostov, and this, he gestures to the woman beside him, is Lady Jamandi Aldori. We both thank you for answering her call to heroes. You may be few, but we only need the best for this great task. Lady Jamandi offers the room a broad smile before she speaks. South of here, beyond Brevoy's border, lie the Stolen Lands. This disputed territory has been claimed time and time again by would-be settlers, but because the area has been a haven for bandits and monsters, it has never been held for long. Rostov intends for this to change. If you have enough courage to drive off the dangerous denizens of the Stolen Lands, you can seize territory for yourselves, and name yourselves baronesses and barons. Rostov intends to recognize the legitimacy of any new rulers of the land, and none of the neighboring realms care enough to challenge you. We are prepared to provide backing as a trade partner and military ally. If you claim the land, you will indeed have all of Rostov's support. She raises her goblet. But the details of your individual mission and charters into the Stolen Lands can wait. For I raise my glass to you, brave heroes. Let us eat and enjoy the evening. Tomorrow will be a very busy day. Immediately on cue, the catering staff began to circle around the room, filling mugs with mead, wine, or water, and serving food from heaping platters. The servants had impeccable manners, detailing how each of the 4 courses was prepared, taking the time to highlight rare spices and garnishes. As the feast goes on, the servants seem to be on a never-ending quest to keep mugs and goblets full for each guest. The first and second courses were devoured at a rapid pace, and mingling between strangers started to occur, as when someone would get up to use the facilities, they would return only to find their seat filled. Callum was taking mental notes on the power players of the other tables. In the middle row, he noticed a ruggedly handsome man with a constant jawline shadow, with his dark gray hair in a small bun. There was a distinctive sword bearing the crest of a noble house that he carried. There were 6 others around the same table, all wearing standard adventuring gear. Perhaps they were mercenaries of this certified Chad of a man. The furthest table seemed like an exceedingly well-organized group of 6. Judging from the quality of their equipment and the lack of dirt in their armor, Callum had no doubt that they were well funded. He leaned over the table to speak with his companions. "Time to make new friends and gather some blackmail, everyone," he whispered with his standard sly grin. "But mostly friends, right?" Berina asked. She had noticed the pale elf that had been drinking wine alone. She was mysterious to her and wanted to make her a target of diplomacy.
Yes, friends first. Why would we need to blackmail anyone?
Kirini retorted, sounding genuinely confused. Callum just kept smirking at her as everyone but Ruby got up and started to mingle. Ruby was not the mingly type. Being from the Verduran forest, she was uncomfortable at parties and fancy manners with lavish feasts. To keep her anxiety low, she needed to stay focused on her quest to retrieve her grove's stolen artifact, the Heartwood Talisman. She leaned towards a balding dwarf with a salt and pepper beard, who had been equally silent as her while enjoying the food. "So this is a lot of food for, simple adventurers, eh?" Is Ruby's best try at breaking the ice. "Quite. And many of us may not even survive. The Stolen Lands are a dangerous place with many ruins that have been forgotten but wait to be discovered. Only those..." The dwarf kept yammering in his soft, monotone voice about history or something. Ruby had lost attention rather quickly. "Don't let Harem wear you down!" A whisper appeared in Ruby's ear. It was Lindsay from across the table. "This is an exciting time. The start of an adventure, heroes, monsters." Ruby quickly grew exhausted between an old, grumbly dwarf and an overexcited halfling both talking to her at the same time. She returned to her food, sprinkling some mushrooms that she had grown on her staff. Others were having more success. Berina approached the elf sitting alone, who didn't seem too interested in the food other than the wine. Her pale complexion, jet black hair, and all black attire spoke to Berina's inner soul. Jathal warmed to Berina's positive outlook in contrast to her brooding body language, and Berina had made a fast friend. Dorgon pulled a seat next to the heavily armored lady with short blonde hair and stunning green eyes. Her tower shield was covered in scratches as if to remove the heraldry that was once on it. Valerie and Dorgon got along like old friends who had not seen each other in a long time, because Valerie, like Dorgon, had some former military training. Dorgon assumed Valerie may have been a paladin in training at one point, but he knew better to push personal issues before he got to know someone. The far end of the table was the loudest as Kirini commenced her patented arm wrestle diplomacy, with the Kelid woman named Amiri and the purple gnome named Tartusio acting as judge. They were in the deciding tussle. Kirini could see the familiar glare of rage burning in Amiri's eyes. Praising her deity Gorm, Amiri's rage was giving her an edge, slowly bending Kirini's equally buff arm, but it would not suffice. Kirini was able to pull back from the brink of defeat, slamming Amiri's arm against the table, leaving a tear in the cloth and a sizable dent in the wood. Woot woots followed by loud cheering in the great hall. "Quite impressive. You'd make a great bodyguard. How would you like to join me?" piped Tartusio. Kirini looked down at the small purple gnome.
You look breakable.
Amiri started laughing as Kirini flexed at Tartusio. Across the hall, Callum had pulled up a seat beside Mr. Manbun Megar Varn, who, as Callum suspected, was leading a group of mercenaries. Megar was interested in Callum and his companions as potential new allies. Since Megar Varn was of House Varn and Restov, he provided Callum with a little political context for Lady Jamandi's call to heroes. Callum, unofficially, the plan to settle the Stolen Lands was a political move to establish new allies with Lady Jamandi and the Sword Lords in Rossland. The Sword Lords have been trying to regain their independence ever since Coral the Conqueror vanished and House Sertova became the ruling family of Brevoy. If you want my advice, be friendly. But don't do anything that comes with strings attached. You do not want to be dragged into Brevik politics. A bell rings from the head table, cutting Callum's conversation with Megar Varn short. The servants stop their work as Lady Jamandi rises. "My friends, I hope you have enjoyed the food and drink this evening." Her words are quickly met with a round of cheers and enthusiastic tapping of several dozen mugs. Smiling, she continued, "You truly honor me. But this night is for you. As heroes, you have responded to my call, and I can't wait to hear tales of your exploits in the time to come. Tomorrow, I will speak with you all about your individual charters and how we can support you. I suspect it will be a busy day, so I suggest we make an early evening of it." Lady Jamandi gestures to the large double doors to the east and west sides of her manor. "Of course, I've arranged accommodations for all of you. My house attendees can escort you when you are done here. I hope you find the rooms restful. We shall speak further tomorrow when we meet back here at sunrise to discuss your kingdom planning." Lady Jamandi and the Lord Mayor then leave the hall, heading out the doors of the west wing. They are followed by a handful of guards. Callum quickly thanked Megar for the delightful conversation. He saw that the far table was getting ready to leave, and he had not talked to them yet. He approached who he thought was the leader, a stocky brown-haired man in full armor with a jewel-encrusted longsword at his side. "Greetings, fellow heroes. Allow me to introduce myself, Callum Gleesong," as he holds out his hand. "Who do I have the pleasure of taming the Stolen Lands with?" The man shook Callum's hand with a firm grip. "My name's Helen Estrelev. I'm afraid we likely won't be taming any areas that are too close to each other. Shall we reserve formal diplomacy until we are actually established?" Though surprised at the formality Hannes expressed, Callum was not deterred. The more formal someone is, the more secrets they hide. "Not a problem at all. It is good to put faces and names together before we go our separate ways. Best of luck to you and your group." Hannes nodded and thanked Callum, and got his group to head out for the night. Megar Varn also stopped to thank Callum, as Megar was staying in his own family's home in Restov, while many of his crew who were hired and traveled from afar were staying in the manor. As the manor's staff buzzed around cleaning up, the party were guided to their 2 rooms by a couple of attendees. Dorgon was particularly happy to have a bed, walls, and a little privacy for a change. He turned to Callum, whom he was sharing a room with. Callum, I know you have a way with words, and you are indeed from these lands, but I need to know. Why do you want this chance at building a new home? Callum paused, taking care to pick the right words, because his dwarven friend had more reason than most for their party to succeed. Dorgon, there needs to be a place in these stolen lands that is more accepting and tolerant of the local inhabitants. My mother was chased out of the settlement many ages ago because of their own fears. The settlement then was attacked by bandits and razed to the ground. She could have defeated them with her magic. But you have no worries. I want to help you find a home for your clan. Dorgon nodded, which was his equivalent of him being happy with the answer. He could never tell if Callum was deceiving him, so he always judged Callum by his actions, and so far Callum's actions were aligned with his own goals. In the adjoining room, Berina was still very excited about the feast and looming adventure, but had tempered her energy to not overwhelm a sleeping Ruby who was socially exhausted from the feast. Kirini seemed unaware of Berina's nervous energy as she was busy doing her nightly workout routine. Berina blurted out, Kirini girl, what monsters will we get to face in the Stolen Lands? Where should we go first? What yummy monster recipes will you teach me? Without stopping her sit-ups, Kirini replied,
Well, we are avoiding the swamp at all costs. Great music and nice people. Whew, too many dangers. My father lost an eye.
Kirini paused, lying on the floor looking at Berina laying on her bed. She continued,
I don't know much else. There's this purple fog that looms over the Gnarl marshes. It forces a lot of traders to go through the swamp. Try not to look too far ahead.
But I can't help it. Pharasma gives me these visions of destiny and I know I'm on the right path. Tomorrow can't come soon enough. Berina trailed off into a deep sleep. She was out for the night. Being the last one awake was typical for Kirini, as she was one with the night. Monsters would learn to fear her and her muscles. During their sleep, everyone was jolted awake at the sound of a scream and the slamming of bars in all the windows. Dorgon and Callum had less than a moment to register as a man in black leather armor barged into their room wielding 2 daggers. Dorgon pitied the fool. End of session. Here we are at the end of session 1, The Hero's Feast. I plan to do a GM recap at the end of each video to describe what happened at the table, highlight any changes I made between the book and the Adventure Path written by Paizo and the video game by Alcat, and any challenges that I might have faced when planning this part. And one of the first challenges I faced was actually how to handle the companions. Running the companions are a lot of fun because there's a lot of reference and life that the video games give each companion between the voice actors, the individual quests, and then the supplement book as well. And I want to do them justice, but I never want the companions to outshine the players. It's always their story first, and I don't want to avoid the problem where in a game you can have a super-powered NPC that solves everything. Kind of want to avoid that while providing them fun NPCs to interact with. I did communicate with my table that when they get their charter from Lady Jamande, they could persuade one companion into joining their side, and depending on their interactions at the feast, they would be able to make a roll to persuade them, and the more friendly NPC was, the lower the DC, and then they could choose from whoever they got successes out of. My players did ask why they can't persuade multiple companions, but then we get into if they're adventuring with 4 companions and they fight some monsters, I'm playing the game by myself, and that's not fun. So the compromise was limit to 1, and unless like special circumstances like large combat, but also if a player character died, which is possible, I will have a character sheet to give them right away, so that way they aren't left out. in the cold too much. The only change I made for this adventure, or this session, sorry, was excluding the Iron Wraiths group. They're not mentioned in the book and don't really affect the plot too much. I wanted to focus on the companions, Megar Varn and Hanastrelev. They're all important NPCs that have different parts of the book, and I think they're more fun. So I just want to thank everyone for watching. I'm going to continue to work on some of my voice acting, maybe get a better microphone, get some character art. I've put links in the description where you can find the materials for the Kingmaker Adventure Path video game and the Foundry VTT module. The maps from the book were recreated in Foundry, and they all look amazing. Always like to share the work that the artists are doing. So please leave any feedback in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.